love, pain, truth.
The rain was tapping against the kitchen window, a steady, rhythmic drum that usually made Clara feel cozy. Tonight, however, it just felt loud. She stood at the sink, scrubbing a plate that had been sitting in the water for too long. In the living room, the television hummed with the evening news, but her husband, David, wasn't watching it. He was staring at his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen, his face pale under the warm kitchen lights. They had been married for 7 years. 7 years of routine, of quiet dinners, of paying bills and grocery shopping. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom house on a street that looked exactly like the one next to it. It was a safe life, a boring life, Clara sometimes thought to herself when she couldn't sleep at night. But it was theirs, or at least, that's what she had always believed. David came from a world of money, a fact he tried very hard to forget. He was the only son of the Whitmore family, a name that appeared on buildings, hospitals, and private jets across the country. But David had left all that behind right after college. He told Clara he hated the greed, the coldness, and the way his family treated people like chess pieces. He wanted a simple life with her. He wanted to build something real with his own hands. Or so the story went. Clara wiped her hands on a towel and walked into the living room. "David, is everything okay?" she asked softly. He jumped, nearly dropping his phone. He quickly locked the screen and looked up, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, just work emails. You know how it gets." "You've been getting a lot of work emails lately," Clara said, sitting down on the armchair opposite him. "Is that project at the firm giving you trouble again?" David worked as a mid-level manager for a logistics company. It wasn't glamorous, and the pay was average, but they made it work. He nodded a little too quickly. "Yeah, it's fine. Just busy." Before Clara could ask anything else, the house phone rang. It was an old, landline device they kept for emergencies, the sound jarring and shrill in the quiet room. David flinched again. He stared at the phone on the wall, as if it were a bomb about to go off. "Aren't you going to get that?" Clara asked. He stood up slowly. "I'll get it." He walked over and picked up the receiver. He didn't say hello. He just listened. Clara watched him. She saw his shoulders tighten. The way his grip on the plastic handle turned his knuckles white. She couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she could feel the heavy silence coming from him. "I told you not to call this number," David said, his voice low and tight. "We agreed on that." There was a pause. The person on the other end was talking fast. David's breathing became shallow. "I don't care about the scandal," David hissed. "That's not my problem." Another pause. Longer this time. David closed his eyes, looking defeated. "Fine, fine, but not alone. If I come, Clara comes with me. That's the deal." He listened for a moment more, then slammed the receiver down onto the cradle. The room felt very still. Clara waited, her heart beating a little faster. She knew, without being told, that it hadn't been a work call. It had been them. "David?" she asked. "Who was that?" David leaned his forehead against the wall for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then he turned to face her. He looked tired. Not just end of a long day tired, but a deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. "That was my mother," he said. The word mother hung in the air. In 7 years, Clara had only met the woman once. She was terrifyingly elegant, spoke in a voice that sounded like ice cracking, and had looked at Clara as if she were a smudge of dirt on a priceless painting. "What does she want?" Clara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "We haven't spoken to them in years." David walked over to the sofa and sank into it, burying face in his hands. "There's a mess. My younger brother, Julian, got into some trouble. Something with the company funds and a lawsuit. It's all over the news back in the city. The family's image is, well, it's falling apart." Clara frowned. "Okay, but what does that have to do with us? You left. You signed the papers. You're out of the will, remember?" "I am out of the will," David said, looking up at her. "But they need something else right now. They need damage control. They need to show the public that the family is still strong, that we are united. They want me to come to the Founders Gala this weekend. They want to parade the prodigal son and his simple, loving wife around to distract the press." Clara felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She stood up. "And you said yes? You told her I would go." "I had to, Clara," David said, his voice rising slightly in desperation. "They offered me something. It's not about money. I mean, it is, but look, our savings are gone. I know you've been looking at the bank statements. Clara froze. She hadn't wanted to worry him, but she had noticed the balances getting lower and lower. She thought it was just the cost of living going up. I haven't lost my job, David continued, but things are tight. Really tight. If I go to this gala, if I play the good son for one night, my father agreed to sign off on a trust fund for us. It's enough to pay off the house. Enough to finally get us out of this. This cycle of scraping by. Clara looked at the man she loved. He seemed so small in that moment. She remembered the confident boy who swept her off her feet in college. The one who swore he didn't need a dime of his family's dirty money. And now, here he was, agreeing to dance for them just to pay the mortgage. You hate them, Clara whispered. You hate that world. You always said it was toxic. I do hate it, David said, standing up and walking over to her. He took her hands, but his palms were sweaty. But I love you. And I'm tired of worrying, Clara. Aren't you? One weekend. We go in, we smile, we get the check, and we leave. We never have to see them again after this. Clara looked around their small living room. She saw the peeling paint on the window frame, the secondhand rug. She thought about the stress of the last few months. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was just a business transaction. When do we leave? She asked. In the morning, David said. They're sending a car. The next day felt like a dream. A sleek, black town car pulled up to their curb at dawn, drawing stares from the neighbors. The driver, a man in a crisp uniform, took their bags as if they were made of glass. Clara sat in the back seat, the leather cool against her legs. David sat next to her, staring out the window, his leg bouncing up and down nervously. As they drove away from the suburbs and toward the highway, the scenery began to change. The cramped houses and strip malls gave way to rolling green hills and perfectly manicured fences. They were heading to the Whitmore estate, a place Clara had only seen in magazines. You're shaking, Clara noted gently. She reached out to touch his arm. David pulled away slightly, fixing his cufflink, a gold one he hadn't worn in years. I'm fine. Just long drive. I need to prepare myself. My mother can be difficult. I remember, Clara said. Just stick close to me. We're a team, right? Like we always are. David didn't answer. He just kept looking out the window as they turned off the main road and passed through the first set of iron gates. These weren't the gates to a normal house. They were massive, towering spikes of black metal with the Whitmore family crest welded into the center. Clara felt a pang of anxiety in her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, telling herself that she was doing this for their future. She was doing it for the house, for the security. But as the car wound up the long, tree-lined driveway, revealing a mansion that looked more like a castle than a home, she had a terrible feeling in her gut. She looked at David again. He was staring straight ahead, his face a mask of cold indifference. The husband who made her coffee in the morning was gone. In his place was a stranger, a boy who looked like he was walking toward a firing squad, but also a boy who looked like he belonged there. The car slowed down, pulling up to the grand entrance. Servants were already waiting on the steps. We're here, David said softly, his voice sounding hollow. David, she asked, grabbing his hand tight before he could open the door. What are you not telling me? Why do they really need us? David looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something she couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe. Just stick to the script, Clara, he whispered. Please, just follow my lead. He opened the door and stepped out into the sun, leaving Clara alone in the dark car for just a second longer. She took a deep breath, smoothed her skirt, and stepped out into the blinding light of the Whitmore world, unaware that the ground beneath her feet was about to crack wide open. The room Clara was led to was larger than her entire first apartment. The walls were covered in silk wallpaper, and the bed had so many pillows it looked like a cloud. A maid moved silently around her, unpacking the small suitcase Clara had brought. Everything here smelled like lavender and old money. It was quiet, too quiet. No traffic noise, no neighbors arguing. Just the heavy silence of a house that had stood for centuries. Clara stood by the window, looking out at the perfectly trimmed gardens. She felt like she had stepped onto a movie set, but she wasn't an actress. She was just a regular person wearing a dress she bought on sale. She felt small. She felt out of place. A soft knock on the door broke her thoughts. It was David. He had changed clothes. He was wearing a dark, tailored suit that fit him perfectly, replacing the casual jacket he had worn in the car. He looked different. He didn't look like the husband who burnt toast on Sunday mornings or forgot to take out the trash. He stood up straighter. His jaw was set in a hard line. He looked expensive. "Are you ready?" he asked. His voice was smooth, lacking the rough edge she was used to. "Ready for what?" Clara asked, turning away from the window. "Drinks with my parents." Before the dinner, David walked into the room and checked his reflection in the vanity mirror. He fixed his tie, his movements precise and practiced. "Just remember what I said. Stick to the script. Let me do the talking." "David, you're acting strange," Clara said. She walked over to him, reaching out to touch his arm. "You seem like you're comfortable here. I thought you hated this place." "I do hate it," he snapped, pulling his arm away. Then he took a deep breath, softening his expression. "I'm just nervous, Clara. I need to make a good impression. For us." He offered her his arm. "Come on, let's get this over with." They walked down a long hallway, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Clara held onto his arm, but it felt rigid, like holding onto a statue. When they entered the main drawing room, David's parents were waiting. His mother, Eleanor, sat on a velvet sofa like a queen on a throne. His father, Robert, stood by the fireplace, swirling a glass of amber liquid. "David," Eleanor said. She didn't stand up. She just nodded. "Mother," David said. The accent was back. The posh, boarding school accent that he had tried so hard to lose for 7 years. It made Clara shiver. "This is Clara." Eleanor looked Clara up and down. It wasn't a friendly look. It was the way a person might look at a bug on their picnic blanket. "Hello, Clara. That dress is interesting. Very simple." Clara felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore." Robert walked over, shaking David's hand firmly. "Good to see you, son. You look well. The country air seems to suit you." "It does," David said. He didn't mention the suburbs. He didn't mention their tiny house. He just played along. For the next hour, they made small talk. It was agony. They talked about the stock market, people Clara didn't know, and the troubles with David's brother. David chimed in effortlessly, laughing at his father's cold jokes, nodding at his mother's criticisms. He was a different person. Clara sat there, sipping her water, feeling more invisible with every passing minute. Eventually, the conversation shifted to business. "We need to get the paperwork sorted out before the gala tonight," Robert said, looking at David with a sharp gaze. "We can't have any loose ends with the investors watching." "I know," David said. He glanced nervously at Clara. "We can go to the study. Alone." "No need for secrecy," Robert said, waving his hand. "Clara is your wife. She's part of this family now. She should know what we're agreeing to." David's face went pale. "Really, Father, it's boring legal stuff. Clara doesn't care about that." "I insist," Robert said, his voice hard as stone. David swallowed hard. "Fine." They all moved to the study, a room filled with old books and leather chairs. Robert sat behind a massive desk and pulled out a thick document. He slid it across to David. "Sign here," Robert said. "And here. And the last page is the non-disclosure agreement." Clara watched David pick up the pen. His hand was shaking. "What is this, David?" she asked. Her voice sounded small in the big room. "It's the agreement, Clara," David said, not looking at her. "About the money." "Read it," Clara said. "Clara, please," David whispered. "Read it out loud," Robert said, leaning back in his chair with a smirk. David's eyes filled with tears. He couldn't do it. Clara stood up and walked over to the desk. She picked up the document. She read the first paragraph. Then she read the second. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't a trust fund. It wasn't a gift. It was a waiver. It said that David Whitmore agreed to forfeit any and all future claims to the Whitmore estate. It said he acknowledged that he had been receiving monthly allowances for the past 7 years, which were now considered loans. By signing, he agreed that those loans were forgiven, but only if he signed away his name forever. Clara looked at the dates. The payments started 7 years ago, the same year they got married. The same year David claimed he quit the family business to start over. "You?" Clara's voice trembled. "You've been taking money from them?" "All this time." David looked at the floor. "Clara, I can explain. We were struggling, David," she said, her voice getting louder. "Last year, we couldn't pay the heating bill. You told me you took a pay cut. You told me we had to budget. But you were taking their money? I did it for us." David finally yelled. Do you know how hard it is to be normal? I didn't know how to do anything. I never paid a bill in my life until I met you. I panicked. I took the money so I wouldn't disappoint you. I wanted to be the provider. So you lied. Clara felt sick. You let us eat cheap food and worry about rent, while your parents were wiring you thousands of dollars a month. Where is it, David? Where did the money go? I put it away, David stammered. Most of it. I was saving it for us, for a house like this one day. But then, it got complicated. And my father, he said if I didn't come back for this gala, if I didn't sign this paper, he would cut me off. He would call in the loans. We would lose everything, Clara. Our house, our car. We'd be in debt. So this isn't about getting money, Clara said, the truth crashing down on her. You're here to pay them off. You're signing away your name so they don't sue you for the cash you hid from me. Robert laughed dryly. She's sharper than you said, son. Yes, my dear. David has been living a fantasy, pretending to be a poor little rich boy. Well, the fantasy is over. He signs, we forgive the debt, and he goes back to playing house with you. Or he doesn't sign, and I ruin him. Clara looked at her husband, the man she thought was honest and hardworking. He was just a scared boy playing a game, and he had dragged her into it without her knowing. The job stress, the late nights, the worry about money, it was all an act. He wasn't working late. He was managing his secret inheritance. You used me, Clara said, stepping back from the desk. You used me to prove a point to them. I was just a prop to show them you could live a simple life. No, I love you, David pleaded, reaching for her hand. That part was real. The love is real. Is it? Clara pulled her hand away. Or was I just the only person who didn't know who you really were? David looked from his father to his wife. The pressure was too much. He picked up the pen. I have to sign, Clara. If I don't, we lose the house. The house you love. Please, just let me fix this. He scribbled his name on the paper. Robert picked it up, blowing on the ink. Pleasure doing business with you, son. Now, go get dressed for the gala. You have a part to play. David walked out of the room with his head down, defeated. Clara stood there for a moment, looking at the older man who held so much power over them. She realized then that David would never be free. As long as he took their money, as long as he was afraid of them, he belonged to this house. And by extension, she did too. But she wasn't like David. She wasn't afraid. She turned and walked out of the study, not toward her room to get ready, but toward the back garden. She needed air. She needed to think. The cracks in the marriage hadn't just surfaced. They had shattered the foundation. She didn't know if she could spend another night pretending, but looking at the high walls surrounding the estate, she knew she wasn't leaving anytime soon. She was trapped in the gilded cage, at least for tonight. The grand ballroom was blindingly bright. Chandeliers the size of cars hung from the ceiling, casting a warm, golden glow over hundreds of people in tuxedos and expensive gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and roasted lamb. Clara stood near a tall pillar, holding a glass of sparkling water she had no intention of drinking. She felt like a ghost floating through a party that wasn't meant for her. David was across the room. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand and a smile plastered on his face. He was talking to a group of men in suits, gesturing broadly, looking exactly like the heir he had sworn he never wanted to be. He was laughing at their jokes, nodding at their stories. He fit in perfectly, too perfectly. Watching him, Clara felt a heavy stone sink in her stomach. The realization hit her hard. The simple, struggling husband she knew and loved was just a costume he wore. This man, this socialite, was who he really was. A waiter passed by, offering hors d'oeuvres on a silver tray. Clara shook her head. She wasn't hungry. In fact, she felt a little sick. Earlier that day, in the study, she had seen the truth. The money, the lies, the fear. David had brought her here not to save their marriage, but to save himself. He used her as a prop to make his family think he had a humble, happy life, just so he could sign a piece of paper and wipe away his debts. The band started playing a slow song. Couples began to drift onto the dance floor. David spotted Clara from across the room. He excused himself from the group and walked over. He looked lighter, happier than he had in months. He thought he had fixed everything. There you are, David said, taking her hand. You look beautiful, honey. Come dance with me. I don't want to dance, David, Clara said, pulling her hand away gently but firmly. David's smile faltered for a second, but he tried to keep it up. Don't be like that. We're almost done. Just a few more hours of smiling, and then we can go home. We're free now. The debt is gone. I signed the papers. Is that what you think this is about? Clara asked, looking him in the eye. The money. It's about our future, David said, leaning closer. Once we get back, I'm going to use the savings I actually managed to keep to buy us a real house. No more worrying about the heating bill. We can start over. Clean slate. You can't start over with a dirty slate, David, Clara said quietly. David sighed, looking around to make sure no one was watching them argue. Please, not here. Not tonight. Just dance with me. They're watching. I know they're watching, Clara said. That's the problem. You're still performing for them. You signed away your name today to keep your secret. But you didn't do it for me. You did it because you were scared. I was scared of losing you, David whispered fiercely. You were scared of being poor, Clara corrected him. And that's the difference between us. I didn't care about the money. I was happy with our life. I was happy struggling because it was real. But to you, it was just a game. You were playing house, and you were letting me pay the emotional price for it. Clara looked at the man she had spent 7 years loving. She saw the fear behind his eyes, but she also saw the selfishness. He wanted the comfort of her love without the honesty of a partnership. Clara, please, David said, his voice cracking. I love you. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. But we can fix it. We go home. We forget about this place, and we build the life you want. No, Clara said. The word was small, but it was final. I can't build a life on a lie. I don't know who you are, David. The man I married wouldn't have lied to me for 7 years. The man I married would have told me the truth, even if it was ugly. Where are you going? David asked as she turned away. I'm going to pack, Clara said. I'm not staying for the after party, and I'm not going back to the suburbs with you. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly over the Whitmore estate, mocking the dark mood inside. The driveway was filled with expensive cars getting ready to leave. Clara stood by the front door with her small suitcase. The maid was watching her from the top of the stairs, looking shocked. David came down the stairs, fully dressed, his hair perfectly combed. He looked desperate. You don't have to do this. We can share the car back to the city. We can talk. I booked a cab, Clara said. It's waiting at the gate. Clara, please, David begged, grabbing her arm. This is ridiculous. You're leaving your husband because he tried to provide for you? Because he comes from a wealthy family? That's not fair. I'm leaving because you're a coward, Clara said, looking at him with a calmness that surprised even her. You ran away from this life to prove a point, but you never actually left. You kept the money, you kept the secrets. You used me to hide. I'm done hiding, David, and I'm done being your shield. She pulled her arm free. Your father offered me money, by the way, Clara said softly. David froze. What? Yesterday, while you were in the shower. He came to find me. He offered me a check to stay. He said I was good for your image. Clara let out a sad laugh. I tore it up. I'm not for sale, David, and neither is our marriage. David stood there, mouth open. He looked like a little boy who had lost his favorite toy. He didn't know what to say. He realized then that he had truly lost control. For the first time in his life, he couldn't buy his way out of a problem, and he couldn't lie his way back in. Clara walked out the heavy front door. She walked down the long gravel driveway toward the gate. It was a long walk, nearly a mile. She didn't look back at the big house. She didn't look back at the life of luxury she was turning away from. She just focused on putting one foot in front of the other. The air was crisp and cool. As she reached the gate, she saw the yellow taxi waiting for her. It was an old, beat-up car with a dent in the bumper. It was the most beautiful thing she had seen in days. She got into the back seat. Where to, miss? The driver asked. Just drive, Clara said. Away from here. Take me to the train station. As the car pulled away, she watched the massive iron gates of the Whitmore estate shrink in the rearview mirror. She felt a tear slide down her cheek, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like crying. She took a deep breath. She was free. 3 months later, Clara was sitting in a small cafe in a different city. She had found a job as an art teacher at a local community center. The pay wasn't great, but the rent on her small studio apartment was affordable. She had painted the walls yellow. She picked up her coffee and looked out the window. It was raining again, the kind of steady, rhythmic rain she used to listen to in the kitchen with David. For a moment, she missed him. She missed the comfort of having someone to share the silence with. But then she remembered the lying. She remembered the secret bank accounts and the feeling of being a pawn in his game. She opened her mail. There was an envelope from a lawyer. It was the final divorce decree. David hadn't fought it. He had given her everything they had bought together, which wasn't much, but it was hers. She read a note he had scribbled on the bottom of the letter. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I hope you find the real life you wanted. Asterisk. Clara folded the paper and put it in her bag. She looked around the cafe. She saw a man reading a newspaper, an old woman knitting, a student studying. Just regular people living regular lives. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a billion-dollar story. It was real. She took a sip of her coffee and smiled. It was a simple smile, but it reached her eyes. She was exactly where she was meant to be.